Hey, you know, the last 10 years, Tennille and I were on staff at Seven Hills Church in Florence, Kentucky. And I just want to say those were 10 of the best years of my life. We learned so much there. We saw that church grow from several hundred people, 400 to 500, up to weekly attendance of almost 5,000. Isn't that crazy? It's nuts how that church took off, and we were just blessed to be part of everything that happened there. The crazy thing is, even though things are going so well, the church is so blessed. We're in the middle of building a brand new building that's almost done. Even though all that was going on, about a year ago, Tennille and I started feeling like God was maybe doing something a little bit different in us. We started feeling like we needed perhaps a new challenge. And that new challenge for us was to plant a church. God began to put that in our hearts. That eventually led to a conversation with my pastor, Pastor Marcus Meekum, and we're in a staff meeting one day, and it's just the two of us, and he says, you know, what's in your heart for the next few years? And I knew at that moment that God had kind of given me this opportunity just to share my heart with him and tell him and just to put it all out there on the line. And when I did that, we started talking, and he said, you know, let's just make this happen. He said, the one thing that, you know, I have not done, he said, I've transitioned to church, but I haven't planted a church. So if you're going to plant a church, let's send you down to ARC. Let's go send you down there. Those guys are experts, and let's try to figure out what this thing looks like. See if this thing grows in your heart. See if it's really what God wants you to do and what's right for you and right for us and right for everyone. So we did. We went down to ARC and went through the conference, went through a bunch of training, did the interviews, and luckily got approved. You know, not everyone gets approved with ARC. There's only a certain amount of churches every year that get approved, which is a big deal because they help you with a lot of funding for your church plant. But so we get back, and I had the conversation with Pastor. I said, hey, Pastor, we went down, we got approved. We got approved way faster than most people do. Most people, it takes a couple months to do that. We did it really within less than a month, the whole process from beginning to end. So the conversation was, what do we do now? Where do we go from here? And my thought was, you know, I just want to listen to God. I just want to get it right. I just want to make sure that we make the right decisions. So we started thinking about where we would go, what we would do. You know, 10 years ago, before we came to Seven Hills Church, one of the things that happened was we were in Jacksonville, Florida, in a car ride on the way home from this restaurant that we were at. We were about 2 weeks away from moving into a new house that we were going to buy. We were on staff at a church there in Jacksonville, and things were going pretty well. Things were great. There was no issues. We were, you know, getting ready to buy a home, had been in an apartment. So our son Maddox was really excited about going into that new home. And he had been in the apartment and couldn't really get out and ride his bike and do things that he wanted to do. But on the way home, Maddox says something in the car that really kind of caught my attention. And the one thing that he said, Dad, he said, I don't think we're supposed to move into that house. And when he said that, me and Tennille both were like, what do you mean you don't think we're supposed to move into that house? And, you know, we were just kind of blowing him off a little bit. And he said, well, God just spoke to me and told me that we're not supposed to move into this house. And the kid's 5 years old at the time. So Tennille and I were just like, we're not really paying a whole lot of attention to that. But I get home that night and I can't really shake what he has said. I kind of, still got that in my heart and on my mind. And I put him to bed that night. We do our little thing that we do every night. We pray. And he looks up at me before he goes to sleep and he says, Dad, what happens when you don't listen to God? I said, well, Maddox, I guess bad things happen. He says, that's right, Dad. He said, bad things will happen if we move into that house. And when he said that, it shook me up, and it led me to go on a fast. Tennille and I both went on this fast, and the whole point of the fast was just to make sure that we weren't doing the wrong thing. Were we doing something that we weren't supposed to do? Was God really trying to speak through a 5-year-old? A couple days into this fast, I felt the Lord speak to me as clear as I ever have that we were supposed to move back to Kentucky. We weren't supposed to move into that home. And you know, it's one of those things like, you know that you've got it right because it's so clear. It's such a clear word to you. So we do that. We end up moving back to Kentucky. We get there, and about 4 days later, my son becomes really, really ill. He's diagnosed with cancer, and that cancer led to several years of treatment with him being extremely sick. And it was during that time that I was able to connect with Pastor Marcus, and that I found my way to Seven Hills Church, and we were just able to just have such a blessing in ministry there. I started off volunteering, and before you know it, the one of the associate pastors had left, so I was brought on staff, and God really sent me there for a specific purpose, and that purpose was to be able to sit down and talk to you today, to be able to be prepared to be your pastor here at Lake Hills Church. And I'm so blessed by that. I'm so happy that he done that. So as the story goes on, the next conversation with us was, where are we going to plant? And there was conversation that maybe it would be in Lexington, where we're from, but there was a little piece of me and a little piece of Tennille that kind of always knew that we would go back to Florida. And God just began to put Central Florida in my heart. So we go to Florida, we come to this central part of Florida, and we're looking around and looking at some different places. But the first place that we went to was Clermont. And Clermont, it was like the very moment we drove into town, I felt God was just absolutely speaking to our hearts that this was the place. There was no question in my mind. There was no question in Tennille's mind. We felt like we were home. We felt like God said, this is the place. I remember driving up and just looking over the city, looking across the lakes and looking at the hills that are here in this area. And it just felt so right to me. It felt like such a great place. So we go back and we tell Pastor Marcus, we're saying, hey, we feel like we've got our place. We feel like we know where we're supposed to go. And now what's that look like? I said, I can be on staff for another year. I can be on staff for another 5 years. I just want to do what's right for the church. I want the timing to be right. I want all those things to just align themselves and to be, to be a situation that really works for everyone. And so we started transitioning my job. We started transitioning Tennille's job off to several people. And before you know it, we had worked it out to where we had trained people. And by this time, it was about November. So we actually moved to Florida in December, the 1st of December. And immediately started meeting people. We started gathering people. We started just trying to meet as many people as we could. And I will say that we've had a blast hanging out with our new Lake Hills family. You guys are amazing. We've had such a great time, and we feel blessed to be your pastor, just to be part of your lives. And what we see is a future that is bright. I believe we can create a church that meets the needs of Clermont. And the thing that's crazy about Clermont is it's growing. It's growing like crazy. And I believe one of the reasons God has sent us here is because it is growing. There's not enough churches here to even begin to contain the type of growth that's going to happen here over the next 10 years. So we're excited about that. And when I did a little history in Clermont, I kind of researched, and I found out that the founding fathers of Clermont, the guys who kind of came here the first, from the get-go, they came here for one purpose, and that one purpose was to create a place, a city that was designed for families. And I believe that is the character of this city. That's what this city is. It's designed for families. And we want to be able to reach families here in Clermont. We have a big vision for what God's going to do. I see a church that is an international church. I believe Clermont and the Orlando area is a place where people come from all over the world. And one of the things about that is many of them come from different parts of the country or other countries, and they don't really have family here. But my goal is that Lake Hills can be your family. We want to be your family. We want to have relationship with you. We want to love you. From local missions to overseas missions, we're going to reach out. We're going to love people. We're going to do everything we can to expand heaven. That is our mission statement here at the church. Our number one goal is to expand heaven. And everything we do is going to be it's going to come back to that one central purpose. And more so than anything, I just want to say to you that I believe you belong here at Lake Hills Church.